After 3 trips to Alaska, it is one of my favorite places in the entire world. The mountains, the wildlife, the freedom of the open road. It is a place that you will feel the most connected to nature and understand why we have protected these natural wonders for so long. So in this video, I'm going to dive into a bunch of questions about visiting Alaska, the best national parks to go to, my favorite tours, and more. So thanks for watching, and let's hop in. So the first one is kind of the biggest one, like what is the best time to visit Alaska? And it kind of depends what you want to do. If you want to see the Northern Lights, then you're going to have to go in the winter, or winter-ish. The Northern Lights are out from about September through April. And the best place to do that is up in Fairbanks. This is basically America's most northern major city. I went there in end of February in 2024 and had an incredible time. I have heard that March is actually a little bit better because the days begin to get longer. It's not as cold. Like I had negative 25-degree lows, and trying to watch the Northern Lights outside and take photos was really cold. But then if you want to go hike, you want to see wildlife, you want to take tours, June through August is kind of your sweet spot for visiting Alaska. This is when all the trails are melted out. This is when kind of everything's wide open. You have the longest days. You will have kind of daylight until midnight, which is pretty cool for if you like want to explore and see as much of the state as you possibly can. So like I personally would recommend going in June or July. That's kind of like the real sweet spot, because end of July into August you can tend to have a little bit more rain, though I have also visited in the latter half of August and had a pretty good time, though it was a little bit overcast in Lake Clark and Katmai, and we did have one day of rain, but overall it was still a pretty great time, and I think that you'll have a wonderful trip to Alaska. Alright, so what national parks should you try to key in on when you visit Alaska? So Denali and Kenai Fjords are the 2 easiest national parks to get to because they don't require any flights. You can rent a car from Anchorage and drive there. Denali is about a 4-hour drive, and Kenai Fjords in Seward is about a 2.5-hour drive if you don't stop. Outside of that, it gets a little bit more challenging. Wrangell St. Elias, which is the largest national park in the U.S. on the eastern edge of the state, is also accessible by car, but it will be around a 7-hour drive, including like 2 hours on a dirt road. You are able to drive like halfway and then fly into it if that's another option, but if you want to visit Katmai, Lake Clark, Kobuk Valley, or Gates of the Arctic, you will have to fly to all of those. This can be cost prohibitive, like over $1,000 a person, if not more. So like if you really want to see those national parks, I would definitely budget for that. And now, how many days should you plan to spend in Alaska? I personally recommend at least 9. That would be like a full week, and then 2 weekends. Then you're only using 5 days off, and this would allow you to see both the Kenai Peninsula and Denali. But if you have less, then I would say like at least 4 to 5 days, and then split it between like either Denali and Talkeetna, or down in the Kenai Fjords area and Girdwood. This would allow you to kind of like really focus in on one area. But I would also recommend spending longer if you can. In 2021, my now wife and I did a 22-day road trip through Alaska. It was one of the most magical and enlightening road trips that I have ever done. We did the Kenai Fjords, Denali, Wrangell, Lake Clark, and just like really got a chance to explore slowly and without rushing through it, and it was just such a memorable trip. The biggest kind of question is, how much does it cost to go to Alaska? And this varies dramatically. There are ways to be a little bit more frugal if you're going to not eat out, if you're going to camp, if you're not going to take any tours and then just hike. You can make it more affordable, but let's say that like flights are going to be $1,000 for a couple. Right there is already $1,000. You're gonna have to rent a car. They average over $100 a day there, so that's gonna add up depending on how many days that you're gonna spend. And then like if you camp, you can do that pretty cheaply. So like if you're trying to keep this as low as you possibly can, I think like $3,000 for 2 people is potentially reasonable, and that is like being extremely frugal. However, if you're looking to kind of splurge and to take tours and to go see things and to not camp, which I can't blame you guys if you don't want to, it's going to get a lot more expensive. I did a little bit of math here, so let me read it. So let's say that we're going to do about $1,000 for flights. Then if you're going to be there for a week, we're looking at a week to 10 days. We're looking at maybe another $1,000 for a rental car. Hotels, let's say $300 a night. That's $2,100. So now we're up to like close to $5,000. If you want to do a bear watching trip, that'll be $1,500 each. If you want to do a flight scene trip around Denali, that can be between $300 and $450. If you want to do a Kenai Fjords wildlife cruise out of Seward, that'll be about $250 each. So this just keeps adding up and adding up, and you're probably thinking like, holy smokes, this is like all of the really cool things that I want to do. How much is that all gonna cost? And like my like quick math with some gas and obviously eating for food is like, it could be $9,000 for a couple if you do everything. I'm not saying that you have to do everything, but like if you're like trying to really ball out and see Alaska, like this is like a once in a lifetime opportunity, like $9,000, $10,000, $11,000 is a reasonable kind of price point to spend, which I know sounds crazy. So I also get this asked a lot, where is the best place to see bears? So bears are throughout Alaska, and they're the only state that has both brown bears, black bears, and polar bears, so that's kind of a cool fact. Though there will be no polar bears for 99.9% of the people watching this. You would have to go very far into the Arctic to see them, and that is unlikely for most guests. So where to see them? You can do a flight scene trip to Katmai National Park and Brooks Falls. This is like the most popular place that people go. You get to see them waiting for fish to jump over the falls. It's a beautiful place. You can also go to Lake Clark National Park and Chitina Bay. You can also, so those 2 spots require flights or a boat ride, but I wouldn't really recommend the boat. Do the flight, it'll be quicker, easier, less wild. And then you can also see them kind of in the Kenai Peninsula. Russian River Falls by Cooper Landing is a spot that is known for bears. We actually had a black bear wander into our camp by Ski Lock Lake. That was pretty cool and a little bit unnerving, but he was, or she was, very friendly and was actually more afraid of us than I think that we were afraid of it. And then you can see them in Denali. Though the bears in Denali are different than the bears that you'll see on the coast. Denali grizzlies are going to be more aggressive, a little more territorial, versus the bears that you'll see in Katmai, who have a ton of food and basically might walk by you, like literally next to you, and not really care that you are there. So like there are ways to see bears without spending a lot of money, but they're not guaranteed. If you want a guaranteed bear watching experience, you'll have to pay for it. Another question that seems to pop up a lot is like, how the heck do you get to Alaska? So A, you can fly. B, you can take a cruise, which I think is a nice way to get the experience of like the inside passage, but you really are not getting the Alaska experience, which is like being in this vast landscape and feeling like you are the only person there and seeing the incredible mountains. So like I always recommend to people that if you're young, you're like into hiking and you want to go out and explore, don't take a cruise. Wait until you are older and the legs are a little bit less stable, and kind of save that for another time. The third way is you can drive. You will have to go through Canada and show your passport, so don't forget that. Most people will go up through like Seattle and Vancouver and keep heading north through BC into the Yukon Territory and then into Alaska. I would love to do this. This is going to be some like very stunning terrain. You will literally be in the middle of nowhere. So if you're okay with that, do that. The last way is by the Marine Highway. You hop on a ferry in Bellingham, Washington, and it's about a 3-day journey to Alaska. This also sounds interesting. A lot of people pitch tents on the ferry deck, and they just sleep there and they hang out. I've heard that you meet a lot of very interesting people, and it is great for people watching. But that is also the least expensive way, though you do have to book in advance because that thing books up pretty fast. This is also a way to get your car to Alaska without having to pay for a rental car. So are you able to do Alaska without renting a car? And the answer is yes, but it doesn't give you as much flexibility as you normally would have with a car. So if you're planning to only go to Denali or to Seward, there are trains. You can just hop on a train. It'll take you right up and down. Outside of that, it becomes a lot harder to travel without like getting a private shuttle or being on like a larger bus or flying everywhere. So like if you want the utmost flexibility, renting a car is probably the best way to go. As I said, rental car prices are pretty expensive, but if you try to rent a Turo, you can find a little bit of a better deal. When we went in 2021, the rental car prices were insane, like close to $200 a day. And we found a car on Turo for $80, which is still like a decent chunk of change, but compared to the alternative, it was a huge win. One thing that I will note is that if you have a bunch of money, just consider flying. Fly everywhere. You will spend money, but you will spend way less time traveling, and like driving in Alaska takes much longer than you actually expect. Obviously the state is massive, and you really like can't speed because you don't know when there will be wildlife on the road. So like if you're just like, hey, I'm rich, I got money, less like my time is worth more than just being in a car, just kind of fly all over the place, and I think that you'll have a great time. Alright, 2 more questions, kind of like the most kind of pressing ones are, a lot of people worry about the mosquitoes in Alaska. And yes, they exist, they can be terrible. When we went in May, it was a little bit too early, and like the snow hadn't completely melted out yet, so we were saved from the worst of it. It's also not as bad when you're along the coast and in the south, but if you go up to Fairbanks or Denali when you're interior and the permafrost has melted and the mosquitoes are just kind of like living life with all of that water, it can get really bad. The people who I stayed with at the Arctic Hive, I made a video here. They talk about how it is terrible in the Arctic Circle in Coldfoot. So if you want to stay away from the mosquitoes, spend less time inland. But also like bring your bug spray, bring your bug net, wear long sleeves, and just stay vigilant. Lastly, what kind of wildlife can you expect to see in Alaska? It is the most abundant state for wildlife that we have. You have wildlife on land, you have marine animals. It is a beautiful place to be and things to see. So obviously you have your bears, you have elk, moose, caribou. Denali is a good place to see caribou. Then in the water you have humpbacks, orcas, Steller sea lions, regular seals, so many birds. And just if you're into wildlife or wildlife photography, Alaska is the place to be. It is just magical. And then you can also see wolves, foxes, little rodents, so like there is everything there, and if you spend enough time looking, you're bound to see some. Alrighty, to wrap this up, I wanted to just kind of rank my favorite tours and places to see in Alaska. My favorite tour in Alaska is the Denali Flight Scene Tour. There were about 3 companies out of Talkeetna that offer these, and then a few others in Denali Park by the gateway to Denali National Park that will let you fly into the national park. I choose Talkeetna because A, it's closer to Anchorage, and B, it is closer to the actual mountain. It is where people who climb a Denali fly out of. And this means that you get more time in the mountains with the awesome views than like flying over tundra. They offer various packages spanning between like an hour and 2.5 hours. The one that I really recommend is the Grand Denali Tour. So this flies you around the entire mountain, and then it lands you on a glacier. And you get about 15 to 20 minutes outside, just stretch your legs, take in the view. We did this in 2021, and it's still the best tour that I have ever seen. The views, the glaciers, the jagged peaks, like I am just still blown away by the views of that trip. If you want to take a look at that video, it's right there. So then next would be the wildlife cruise out of Seward for the Kenai Fjords. This is like a 6.5 hour tour. We saw a black bear, we saw orcas, we saw humpbacks, we saw a bald eagle, we saw Steller sea lions, we saw puffins. We saw literally everything, and it was one of the most magical like trips and tours that I've ever seen. Like I'd never seen almost any of those animals beforehand, and to get them all in like one fell swoop was super cool. And I also got to see my first glacier. Like you don't get to go up like to touch it, but we got pretty close, and just being able to see it, to watch it kind of calve, was really neat. Number 3 was our bear watching trip in Katmai. This has a slight caveat because we were staying at Lake Clark Resort, the video here. So we did a day trip from Port Ellsworth to Katmai in Brooks Falls, as well as Katmai in just kind of like a wilderness area. The Brooks Falls one was really cool, but the salmon weren't running as well as we had hoped, so it was not as climactic, I guess is the word that I would use. But the time that we flew into Funnel Creek was incredible. We had like 12 to 15 bears around us at all times. We had a mom and a cub lay down and take a little nap right in front of us. So like, that was really cool. And like, I know it's expensive, but if you have the money, go see Katmai and go spend time with bears. You'll get a great sense that they are like super friendly, very personable, not scary in the sense of like they won't attack you. They could easily kill you if they got angry and they wanted to, but like in that environment, they don't really care about humans because they're just munching on salmon and having a great time. Number 4 of my favorite places would be the Kenai Peninsula. Obviously this includes the Kenai Fjords National Park, but this also includes Cooper Landing with awesome hiking trails like Slaughter Ridge, Ptarmigan Lake. You can hike up to the Exit Glacier and the Harding Ice Field. That is the only trail that is in Kenai Fjords National Park. So if you want to say that you actually stepped foot in the national park, you need to do that trail. And then like the entire peninsula down to Homer is really cool. Go out to the Spit, go kayaking there. That was where we took our first bear flight in 2021 over to Lake Clark in Chittenden Bay. That's an awesome place to see them both in the meadows, and if you get lucky, down on the beach looking for clams. Last up is Wrangell St. Elias National Park. If you have time to make it to the eastern edge of Alaska, you will be so happy. It is a beautiful national park that is really tucked away from most visitors. It's one of the least visited national parks in the US. The main hub is the town of McCarthy. You can, as I mentioned, you can drive into it along a 60-mile dirt road, or you can fly in. Obviously the flying will be a lot quicker and you'll get views, but if you drive in, it'll be less expensive. And then there you can go whitewater rafting, you can walk on the Root Glacier, you can take a flight scene trip around Wrangell, you can go hike, and you can just kind of experience a town that used to be a really big mining hub in the early 1900s that has now kind of just become a tourist hub. But if you have time and you want to see a really hidden gem of Alaska, Wrangell St. Elias is the place to be. Alrighty, well, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe and like this if you found this helpful and you enjoy it. I'm going to be doing more national park recaps, travel guides, and much more. If you want to see some travel inspiration, and take a look at the videos that I have already made. Take care and have a great day.